Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Of impeachment.
First confirmed U.S. case of the contagious coronavirus.
Nancy Pelosi tearing up the president's
winning the New Hampshire primary.
Tom Hanks have tested positive for the...
It comes from China.
Deeply concerned.
Declaring a national emergency.
For a one-year postponement of the Tokyo Olympics.
Wait, these are the results nobody saw coming. Let's go straight to the map.
The United States is halting funding because
science shows wearing a face covering
featuring a superhero cape.
Murder hornets reported in the U.S. for the first time.
Criminal case against Michael Flynn.
It's called Operation Warp Speed.
Experts recommend people try to stay at least 6 feet away from each other. Here's a look at exactly how.
Dozens of American cities up in flames.
The nation city is known as Cha, the capital.
President clutching a Bible at an historic.
Because I represent science.
Let's get an update from Texas, where the governor just issued a mandate
celebration at Mount Rushmore with a speed.
This is playing with fire. We're very close to
it cannot guarantee ballots cast by mail.
Remove mail processing.
President Trump of a campaign to
man in charge by
Conspiracy theory known as QAnon.
I've heard these.
A historic peace deal he has set.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg
Nominee Judge Amy Coney Barrett marched for peaceful demonstrations in the face
States have surpassed 160,000.
Talks between the Afghanistan government and the Taliban.
Watch those ballots. Watch what's going on. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen.
And we're getting some interesting results coming in from.
They've all stopped counting for the night.
Back to work after pausing counting overnight.
Some data, meanwhile, has stopped counting votes.
The county is now going to stop counting at 10:30 p.m.
We stopped counting tonight. They're going to start counting again in a few hours. It's all.
They just stopped counting.
President-elect Joseph Robinette.
The 2020 election was the most secure
election in American history.
Period.
We did it, Joe.
The Electoral College ballots now go to Washington.
Explosion of rocks Music
The
City.
solar winds is at the center.
Protesters descended on Washington on Tuesday to stand in solidarity with President Donald Trump, who continues to claim that the election was stolen from him.
All right, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Hindsight 2020, the show where we talk about the horrors that persist from 2020, but also the show where we talk about how we persist as well. Patrick Gunnels is saving his reading voice for what he expects to be a day full of screaming tomorrow. So tonight I will be joined by the great Patel Patriot, John Harold himself, the founder of Badlands Media, tonight on our flagship show, Hindsight 2020.
What's up, man? It appears that Patrick is not persisting, ironically.
Yes. This is our flagship show now, I decided.
Well, if I'm here, every show I'm on is a flagship show. I believe that's how it works.
Yeah. That's so we are now anointed, and it is official. We are approved as the Badlands Media flagship show for at least the next 7 weeks until 2020 is over.
Yep. And if anything, it can be the flagship show because that seems a little more fitting.
That's a little brutal, but
sorry, bro.
I'm
so excited about this, though.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be fun, John. Before we get into it, we should start with a word from our sponsors tonight, EasyRx, and our good pal, Mike Lindell. What do we have first? Let's bring that Easy RX business.
There we go.
All right, guys. Our partners at Easy RX want to help you in this time of need. With government failures and devastation running rampant, it's never been a better time to stockpile popular medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, fenbendazole, hydroxychloroquine, and other viral care medications. EasyRx wants to help you in such a time as this. For a limited time, Badlanders will receive 25% off purchases over $100 using promo code Black Friday. Rest assured that you and your loved ones are prepared for anything with the EasyRx. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx and use promo code Black Friday for 25% off purchases over $100. Stock up on antibiotics and other necessary medications to keep you and your family healthy. badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx and use promo code Black Friday for great savings. All right.
We also got Mike Lindell real quick.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Awesome.
All right. So, John, tonight we are going to talk about how the media shapes public perception on Election Day, on and around Election Day.
They do?
Yeah. They actually intend to do that. It's even more important than pressing the iPad buttons.
Crazy.
I know. It's nuts. But we have a media perception shift tonight in the real world, or what's left of it. This just as we were going on there, Joe Rogan came out to endorse Donald Trump, the great and powerful Elon Musk. If it wasn't for him, we'd be fucked. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement from of Trump. Enjoy the podcast. So they just had an interview. I believe that you listened to that interview.
Yes, I've listened to the whole thing. I was listening to it at almost double speed. It was like 1.8 or something. But I got all the way through it. Do you want me to give my feedback of it? I certainly can.
Yeah.
It was good. It was interesting. They touched on a lot of the topics that we would like them to go deep into. Like they touched on media censorship. They touched on media lies. They touched on social media bullshit. They touched on big pharma. They got almost into a bunch of the topics, like even the Pizzagate stuff. Like they went almost there, military industrial complex, all these things, but they didn't go super far into everything. And so I think I said in one of our private chats, it's like the normies in our audience are going to be like, oh, this is great for the normies and all that, whatever. And you're not going to be satisfied with it. Like everybody's going to have their own take on it, but it's a good start. And at the very end of it, you could tell the whole purpose for it was coming back to well, and that's why we got to vote for Trump. It was very much a Trump endorsement without Joe Rogan specifically saying it was a Trump endorsement. And then he just has that tweet where he endorses him. So it's worth a listen to, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if Joe Rogan in some way is going to be treated as the new objective media standard by his standoffish approach and the lack of endorsement. I'm glad he endorsed, I guess. I don't think it makes any difference in reality. I think most of his audience probably already supported Trump, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. I don't know if he's advanced them in any pace faster than the mainstream media narrative. And I was thinking about some of this earlier, even apart from any knowledge of this interview, and posted this on Truth Social, and then we can get off the subject. But I really want to just frame this because a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is media portrayal of what's happening. I put up some good questions to ask yourself tomorrow while we're watching TV. First of all, it's worth recognizing that tomorrow what people are going to be doing is watching TV and allowing what's on television to shift our understanding of the world around us. And that in itself is crazy. But some questions. Did this TV character tell me the truth about the 2020 elections to the best of his or her knowledge? Did Joe Rogan do that? Did these other guys do that? Tucker Carlson is broadcasting live from Mar-a-Lago tomorrow. Did he do that? Did this TV character choose not to tell me the truth as an act of weakness or complicity for money or for a platform? Is it prudent to allow this TV character to manage my perception of an attention-grabbing, traumatic event whereby I consent to giving my power away? Has the TV character guided his audience to make poor decisions for themselves in critical moments? Was this TV character ever censored? John, thoughts?
Well, I mean, we're kind of asking all you guys to watch us TV characters cover the election instead.
I think that we
fake election, real coverage, Badlands Media.
That was your idea.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. It's fantastic. But I think we clear the bar on those questions.
I do too. We've done our best these last 3 years, 2 years, however long we've been doing Badlands Media to earn your guys' trust, but also mainly just to realize that you guys shouldn't really trust anybody. Yeah. And decide what's true for yourself. Go figure it out for yourself, but just use your discernment. And there's a lot of people that I personally don't think we can trust. Joe Rogan being the next, that's the guy we should all be trusting now because he's finally endorsed Trump. And where's he been the last 3 years, guys? None of our questions about him the last 3 years changes because the truth has been there this entire time.
Yep.
And he's known about it, but he took $100 million from Spotify not to talk about it. So it's, I don't know. I think, get your coverage where you're.
Or he's in the most amazing white hat info op ever. And wonderful for him if that's the case. But, tomorrow's not the end of the game. It's not like they're going to concede tomorrow and the whole regime is just going to slink away into their little hidey holes. And although they might disappear for a little while.
Hidey holes. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I keep saying we're going to go live at 1 p.m. and we're going to go until we get a result. But I'm not streaming for a week straight because there's no way we're going to get the result tomorrow night. Some people are hopeful, but I would be very, very surprised if that's the case.
I would also be surprised. And you have done an excellent, unwitting job of segueing us directly to our first 2020 story here. This is the New York Times from November 1st of 2020. We have never had final results on election day.
Can I ask a question first? Can you give context of what the show is and what we do here?
Yeah. Well, the idea is that we are watching a never-ending stream of reruns that happen to kind of just map onto a repetitive pattern. And if we step back one more level from that, we can see beyond, not only is this not a spontaneous reality happening in real time as we observe it, it is not even just a repeat of the same stories and narrative beats. It is that within a much larger cycle that plays out in country after country after country all over the world, maybe for all time. And it's this perpetual push and pull between the centralizing and decentralizing factions in a nation and the battle ultimately between good and evil. And now I think those cycles are kind of all aligned in some way. All the world is experiencing it as once. The timelines are converging. The locations are converging. It happens everywhere at the same time. And I just wanted to do this show so that we could observe that layered on top of what we're watching in reality right now. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we're looking back at stuff from 2020, kind of through a current lens, a little hindsight 2020, hence the name.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we have never had final results on election day. In reality, they write, the scenario Mr. Trump is outlining, every vote in a modern election being counted, tabulated, finished by midnight is not possible and never has been. No state ever reports final results on election night, and no state is legally expected to. And so now they have made a very specific claim about counted, tabulated, and finished. And they're saying that these results reported on election night are not final. They are not the official final results. The TV is just speculating. Americans are accustomed to knowing who won on election night because news organizations project winners based on partial counts, not because the counting is actually completed that quickly. These race calls mean candidate A is far enough ahead that, given the number of outstanding ballots and the regions those ballots are coming from, candidate B would be realistically unable to close the gap. The difference this year is not the timing of final results. Those will come, as always, by the certification deadlines each state has set, ranging from 2 days after the election in Delaware to more than a month after in California. The difference, rather, is when news organizations are likely to have enough information to make accurate projections. So, John, what I think is kind of interesting here, besides the obvious dishonesty and the perception manipulation, is that they're saying it's not possible to have a counted, tabulated, finished result. I think that there are technological solutions to that, and we might be seeing some on the horizon.
Yeah, well, not just that. I think they leave out the obvious part of typically on an election night, the reason that they're able to come to a conclusion of who the winner is because one of the other parties concedes based on what the media is reporting as who the winner is going to be.
Indeed.
And that's something we got in 2016 with Hillary conceding, but Trump never conceded and still to this day has not conceded 2020. And so, but that's a part they're leaving out of that. But they're basically trying to justify the long counting votes, which, you know, in hindsight, we know they did so that they could give themselves time to cheat.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you know, this is basically trying to explain it away on a technicality as well. Like these aren't the official results. Hillary actually waited to the morning after for the concession. Remember John Podesta coming out and announcing that there would be no speech that evening. I think you make a great point about the concessions. The other thing now is we're told mail-in ballots have to arrive because they come late. You know how the mail is. And so our election just has to be extended. I know you're kind of the mind, I think, that we're going to see maybe a substantial extension this time around.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if we'll have the results by the time we get to Myrtle Beach. This upcoming election, though, guys, it's like it's a total question mark. I waffle back and forth between what I think is going to happen. And it all comes down to what we don't know that Trump knows, right? Like Trump did something. He knows what he did. And he knows how he's going to resolve this. And we just have no idea. We're left guessing if he's going to let this play all the way through the narrative. Could be a while, or if he's just going to drop the hammer tomorrow, who knows? But we shall see.
And I think, you know, I think that that's a really great point. And then it also understanding that we're not playing the game that gets played on Twitter and the normie podcast sphere where they're all predicting what's going to happen in this state or that state. Like that's not what we're going for. We're trying to figure out what the plausible possibilities are, figure out which ones of those are likely, how we can prepare in the event that any particular event emerges in reality, and then which ones, like where to allot our time and resources in preparation for the different outcomes, which is an entirely different approach to a quote unquote election than what we're seeing in all of media.
Yeah, because they're all spending their time and resources trying to convince you that not enough men are voting. What a fucking joke that is.
Hey, man, I often consider like one of the lenses I always make sure to look through is like the stated intent of the founders and even people who didn't, you know, anti-federalists as they're called, who didn't want the ratification of the Constitution. I try to look through their original intent and what they had originally wrote down. My understanding, the way I understand things, is that our Constitution has essentially been inverted. George Fletcher, a Columbia Law School professor, makes this argument explicitly in a book called Our Secret Constitution. And so I try to at least keep in mind that it's entirely possible the way this is being worked out is in full accordance with the original Constitution, which would actually only have men voting on election day. So the fact that they keep telling men to vote is something I can't totally ignore.
Would it also be only white men, though?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
We can look at the text of it. It's not, it's just a thought. It's a strange thing to be focused on, that the people who are going to be blamed for not showing up to vote, Christians, men, and election deniers. So it's just all the parts of Trump's base didn't bother.
Yeah. And it's a weird, like, because before, I think, wasn't in 2020, they blamed, it was wine moms voted too much for Biden. But now this time it's not enough men voted for Trump. It's like, it's a weird symmetry there.
One more, I was going to, I had some other highlights in here, but not really worth it. Let's keep going. So this was just this weekend, CNN.
This weekend.
Yep. How news outlets are bracing for an election night cliffhanger. So you go from, exactly the same as 2020. We don't need to go through the article, but the same thing present once again. It's going to take longer than election night.
Yeah. I mean, 2020, I wasn't paying attention as much as I am now. Like now it's like my life, right? But even then I remember them talking all the time about like with the mail-in ballots, we're gonna have to count for a while. It's going to take a while to count. It's very obvious this time around they're doing the same exact playbook with like all the news, even the candidates saying like it's going to take a little while, guys. I mean, the left candidates, not Trump, but going to be interesting.
They're even still using the red mirage framing.
Are they really? I haven't noticed that.
Remember, we were going to have the red mirage in 2020. Trump was going to be way ahead on election day.
Yeah.
And then Joe Biden would win in overtime, when it doesn't count anymore.
Yeah, but see, that's why this whole flip to in-person early voting is, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. We're going to see some weird shit tomorrow, I think. Election day numbers coming in, it's going to be weird.
I hope we just get the 2020 results tomorrow and they are all reported. Like if we get a few states being reported exactly the same way they were reported in 2020 and all the same numbers, I think that would be the most hilarious thing ever.
Like a literal repeat of the same timeline and numbers.
Exactly the same. Yes, that would be spectacular.
Brett Baier calls Arizona early after Sharpies are used and everything. Oh, that'd be great.
How about this from 2020, November 3rd in the New York Post? This is election day 2020. CDC says people sick with COVID-19 can break quarantine to vote in person. So this is after, during the summer, we were told that racism was a bigger public health crisis than COVID was. So people were free to go out and riot in the streets. And after being told that we need mail-in ballots for all the people who are confined and quarantined with COVID, the CDC came out on election day and let us know that wasn't true.
I don't remember that. That's insane.
This was one of my favorite stories in 2020.
Because the whole justification for mail-in ballots was COVID. And then they come out and say, yeah, I guess, whatever, vote in person. Not a big deal. Voters
have the right to vote regardless of whether they are sick or in quarantine, the CDC stressed in safe voting guidance posted Sunday. This includes wearing a mask, staying at least 6 feet away from others, and washing your hands or using hand sanitizer. You should also let poll workers know that you are sick or in quarantine when you arrive at the polling location. Yeah, so that those old ladies can freak the hell out and shut the place down.
No kidding. I would love to see the CDC audited just to like see how many times they've contradicted themselves over the years. Because like every new guidance comes out completely contradicts old guidance. That's an insane story. I can't believe they post. I can't believe I missed that.
But the good thing about the CDC is no matter what they say, it's always right.
Yes, that's true. Just like me, I feel that way too.
Well, yes, but you're not in control of the health of a nation, or maybe you are, John. Maybe you are.
You don't know.
Here we go. Twitter. Donald J. Trump on October 30th of 2020. We did not come this far and fight this hard only to surrender our country back to the Washington swamp. So get your friends, get your family, get your neighbors, and get out and vote on November 3rd. We must finish the job and drain the swamp once and for all. Another massive crowd for Trump being highlighted in the video.
Has he had to finish the job tweet recently?
That's a good call. I don't know, but by all means, check that out on Trump Archive. Pull these up while you're looking.
He had a few from 2023. Share my screen here. Nothing that I can see recent though. But like finished the job, like actually quoted. He did November 9th, 18th, November 2nd, 2023.
Do you have a theory about that, or did something just like?
No, it was just weird phrasing, capitalized the way you had it.
Got it.
So yeah, I don't know.
All right. So Trump in one of his speeches might as well. Let me see this. Yeah, let's go ahead and play this.
But we're going to have a big victory. And this election is the most important election of our lifetime. This is a more important election than the last one. And I never thought I'd say it, because they have gone so far radical left that we have to make this final step. And we're going to be normalizing our country.
Normalizing is an interesting use of language right there.
Yeah, because I mean that's definitely not what happened. But also, it's literally that same phrasing. Like, this is the most important election we've ever had. That's this election now. It was the same thing in 2020. Same thing in 2016. Like, how many times can we do that? Do they keep just getting that much more important when they're continually getting more fake? I don't know.
I guess the normalizing word is interesting to me, because that's usually what it's called when a government is recognized by another government. The Abraham Accords saw a lot of normalizations of relations with the government of Israel. So might be something there. I don't know. Let's continue with the three. There is only one way to defend your dignity. There's only one way to defend your family and your country. There's only one way to preserve, protect, and defend the American way of life. You must show up and vote on November 3rd. Again, same thing. We are hearing relentlessly from Trump in this cycle. Donald J. Trump, Jim Jordan, Trump winning margin is going to be so strong. It's going to be a no doubter. That is Jim Jordan in 2020. Breitbart. I am pulling the article up right now.
That Trump tweet that you had about American way of life, that triggered.
Do you want me to pull it back up?
You don't have to. I'll just show you here.
Okay.
This is from Devo 13 in this third to last paragraph here with the highlights. We must be prepared as a nation, as a federal government, and as individual citizens to preserve, protect, and defend our way of life. Kind of that phrasing stuck out to me.
Same phrasing, yeah.
Same exact phrasing. This is the Devo article too. So that's notable. What was the date on that tweet? It was like October 30th or something.
I think it was October 30th. Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have to go through this Jim Jordan article here too much, but Jordan said he was not concerned because Trump would win big on Tuesday. I think the margin is going to be so strong, it's going to be a no doubter. Remember, Americans understand this. They understand the election. In the end, it's about freedom, right? Look at what we've been through the last several months with Democrat governors and Democrat mayors telling Americans they couldn't go to church, couldn't go to work, couldn't go to school, couldn't go to a loved one's funeral. But it was fine to protest, riot, and loot. It was also fine to get out there with COVID and go sneeze on the old lady not checking your ID.
That rhetoric, though, right there, like everybody thought it was going to be too big, too rig in 2020. And now it's like everybody's saying the same thing again. Like, oh, he's got way too much support now. And again, I think he has the will of the people this time around, just like he did last time around. I think they're still willing to steal it.
I think that that's possible. I also think that if Patriots have full control, they will have the television report, the best case scenario for them, which I believe to be a massive Kamala blowout. I want to see her win by a bazillion votes, something so preposterously stupid that not even her own voters would believe it. I think that is our best path forward. I'm totally open to being wrong. I know we're going to win either way. Like, we're just going to keep going until we win, and we have the truth on our side, and we have the vast, vast majority of people on our side, and we have the power on our side if it ever comes to it, but it won't come to it.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that people need to really understand when we say things like this. It's like we have all the levers at any moment to pull the trigger and end this. whenever needed, and that's a metaphorical trigger, hopefully. But there's a narrative aspect to this that is going to play out however it's deemed best, and that narrative you're speaking of would be the most ridiculous, as you said, and that might be the best case scenario. That I don't think people can process that because they don't want to see Kamala winning by that big of a margin, tomorrow. Nobody would want to see that. But if you actually understand the ramifications of that happening, where her own supporters understand that's fake, where CNN has to be like, yeah, something's up here. Like this is weird. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And the bad part is going to be that there is going to be an absolute torrent, an onslaught of terrible, demonic behavior coming from all of the still Trump deranged leftists in the country, including ones in Con Inc., trying to direct all their anger at Trump and his supporters and blame everything on them. You're going to have to just withstand that for a couple of days until the smoke clears. If that's the scenario, that's how it's going to go down. And the people who, because it's crazy to me, but people in our audience still have the relationships with various communists where they're still always trading links and sources all the time. Like, do you think that commie is going to respond better or worse based on the fact that you guys have been going back and forth for the last 4 years? I would say worse, but that's just me. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm more concerned, however this plays out, if it doesn't play out in our favor, like on the TV tomorrow or whenever they tell us, like 5 days from tomorrow, who knows? There are people in our side that are going to be encouraging us to do bad things, encouraging you to do bad things, like go down to places and protest and do all these things. Like I'm all for the right for peaceful protest, but there are some bad eggs out there that encourage people to do stupid, dumb things, and those are the ones I'm worried about. You got to ignore those. We'll name names if it gets to that, but that's what concerns me is people falling for the wolves in sheep's clothing and actually doing stupid shit.
Indeed. Civil war, as I said on Saturday, is like the regime's goal. We're not the first country they've done this in. And you can look at the playbook, you can see what they do, and this is the play. Get the citizens to fight each other while they fund and arm and support the citizens who are already in allegiance with them. So they're essentially pitting one side of the people against the other side of the people. That is the worst case scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. Color revolution. And they have definitely infiltrated our side. And we've already seen people try to do this with the border, like people trying to get followers down to the border to secure it themselves. And what? Yeah. You remember that? That was insane. Yeah. Like, no. Yeah. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I don't think our audience is quite ready for it yet. I don't think anybody is.
Speaking of peaceful protest, this was Breitbart from the 31st of October. This is Beverly Hills. Trump supporters fill the streets of Beverly Hills. The silent majority is silenced no more. All sorts of great pictures from that day. I was at that rally.
You were at this one?
Yeah. And it was a hell of a good time. People actually marched around the blocks. I had never experienced that. I thought it was a little bit silly, but hey, man, I'm down to walk around.
Are you in any of these pictures?
No. I just thought that would be cool to show people that actually there were major events in Los Angeles. It wasn't, people talk about these blue states and think that there's no Trump supporters anywhere. There are Trump supporters everywhere. It's just the problem is they know that their well-being or their livelihood or their friend groups or whatever are going to be compromised at any moment.
Yeah.
They decide it's time to mete out the punishment.
Yep. And that's the thing this time around too. Trump had all these huge rallies, so many of them, like multiple times a day, especially these last like 2 months, 3 months, jam-packed. He had a lot of really packed rallies, even during COVID in 2020. The difference being Biden during COVID, those people believed it. They didn't show up to any of his rallies. At least Kamala can bust people in. They don't have the COVID excuse this time. So she does have people showing up to her stuff. Like, I don't know, man. Like the signs are there. They're gonna be stealing this thing. Anyway, sorry, that was a little off topic, but the rallies have been fun to watch because I do think they've grown since 2020.
Oh yeah,
in size. But again, COVID could be the excuse for that. Maybe they've been that big back then too.
He had a major rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, right before the election last time. I think it was like 50,000.
Did he really?
Yeah. So that location's been used multiple times now. And who knows? We might find out more about what makes that Butler location so special.
I think it's right off the airport, but yeah.
It could be that. So again, speaking of peaceful protests, Donald J. Trump on the 30th of October, Keith Ellison restricts freedom of assembly of political opponents. We were planning for as many as 25,000 people in Minnesota. Now the governor at the last moment will only allow the first 250 people to attend. Riots plus Omar equals win. Talking about how they were going to win Minnesota. He reopened the Iron Range, but you'll remember Keith Ellison as not only a leader in the DNC, but also the major proponent of Antifa in Minnesota.
Yep. He's a D-bag. Didn't he run for president?
Did he?
I thought he was like one of the candidates. I could be wrong.
Jeez, I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe he did.
Could definitely be wrong.
In a primary, you mean?
Yeah. Okay, no, he ran for chair of the DNC. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I think he even maybe was chair of the DNC for a little while, but maybe not. He was the guy pictured though with the what was it, the Rules for Radical book or the Antifa guidebook or something. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's a psyop. Who knows? Trump on the same day. This decision is crazy and so bad for our country. Can you imagine what will happen during that 9-day period? The election should end on November 3rd. And he's referring to this tweet by NPR Politics. The Supreme Court has rejected a bid from Republicans to block North Carolina's absentee ballot extension. The ruling means the state can count ballots, mail-in ballots, received up to 9 days after Election Day, as long as they are postmarked. And now we have decisions saying that ballots can be counted even if they are not postmarked. I think that's what we got out of, was it the Supreme Court of Nevada or something a week or so ago?
Yeah. Can you pull that one back up one more time? Was it the Supreme Court of the United States or the Supreme Court of that state that rejected that bid?
Give me just 1 second here. Let me make sure I'm pulling up the right one.
Because to me, that's one of the X factors this time around, what we went over on Saturday. That legal pathway that's, narratively on the books, that's a path I think that could be used for a lot of the shenanigans we might see, whether he wins in a massive landslide or not, to expose the fraud. So I am interested to see how that gets used and when people start actually talking about that, because that's I haven't seen anybody talking about that yet. But yeah, the Supreme Court, just the Supreme Court, not for that state. So yeah, we saw so many election challenges in 2020. If you actually look at some of the cases, a lot of them were very, very flimsy, and you could definitely make the argument. And I think I have been convinced that a lot of those were done on purpose that way, because he didn't want them to win in the courts. He wanted it to go the way it went. But maybe this time around we'll see it differently. I think I saw on Twitter today that Laura Trump corrected Donald Trump about a tweet that he had saying how many lawyers were ready in each state or something. It's something like 500 lawyers are in each battleground state. I'll see if I can find that. Because if that's true, that I would imagine that's a difference between now and 2020.
Let's hope. While you're looking that up, let's continue. Trump said,
I got it. Real quick.
Okay, cool.
Trump says breaking Laura Trump and the RNC are preparing an election monitoring force of over 100,000 poll watchers and 500 lawyers for tomorrow's election. And she said, slight correction, our force is 230,000 poll observers and poll workers strong and 500 attorneys in every battleground state. The message is crystal clear. Do not cheat. If you do the law, or we will find you and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. So
dig it. Yeah. Find them all, prosecute them all to the fullest extent of the law. Do it for 2022 and 2020 as well.
Yeah.
But because there's plenty in both. Here is Trump later on the 30th. The election should end on November 3rd, not weeks later. Obviously, that is correct. You can't just keep taking ballots afterward. But we saw in Arizona that they just went ahead and did it anyway. They've already told us in Maricopa County they would be taking considerable extra time in this here fake election coming up tomorrow.
Didn't they say up to 10 days or 13 days or something? Like they already know
10,
it's going to take that.
Yep.
Nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be one of the key battleground states. Is that going to be the state that decides the election? Maybe we're not going to get an electoral college victory from either candidate, and they will push on for weeks toward a contingent election. And in the meantime, the uncertainty and the obvious corruption of the American system will cause the financial markets to collapse under Kamala, and she will call the 25th Amendment on Joe Biden, and the whole thing will just fall apart while the election, the fake election, hangs in the balance. It will be magnifique.
You know what? That somebody should clip that right there. I'm sure you've said that a million times too, but that is like, I could totally see that entire scenario happening. Like we don't get an electoral college victory for a while, and while we're waiting to sort this out, the whole thing just like goes belly up.
Did you see the CNN? Actually, you know what? I hate to do this because it's just yesterday, but I think that it really is worth it. And it's, I would love to get your reaction to this. I'm not sure if you saw it yesterday. Hold for processing for like 10 seconds here.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. This will be fun.
By the way, guys, hit that thumbs up if you're watching. We'd appreciate that.
Also, in my own data, seen senior women trending a little more Democratic. I don't think it is to the extent that was found in the Seltzer poll, but she's a great pollster. Even good pollsters sometimes have outliers, and that is why I think what David Axelrod said was so important about uncertainty. This election could be a reboot. That's sort of what the New York Times Siena polls are showing, that Harris has rebooted the Obama coalition. She's getting younger voters. She's getting voters of color to turn out for her in big numbers. But this also could be a realignment, and that's what the Trump team is hoping for, that they're actually doing better with younger voters, better with voters of color than expected. And so even if they're losing seniors by a little bit, especially senior women, they're making up that ground in other places. We don't yet know if this is a reboot or a realignment. And just because the polls are generally showing this race close, I want to be clear, the uncertainty is not just we don't know who's going to win. It's also possible that one of these candidates could run away with this. The uncertainty is not just, well, we're sure it'll be close. We aren't sure of anything right now, and I know that's an unsatisfying thing to hear before the election.
It's so important. It is so important to underscore that that it is so tight that really anything could happen, and we need to say that what we know is that we don't know much.
That's amazing. And can I play this clip of Ann Seltzer, who did the Seltzer
poll? It's amazing. This
is incredible.
Right. Okay. So Noah, are you able to put up that tweet? Maybe it's up and I can't see it because
it's up.
It's up. All right, Ann, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Could you just go through and say what you think about those criticisms?
Well, I'm trying. This is in a format that's a little difficult for me to see. What does this D represent and the R represent?
D. So they're saying that, and again, he says read through the Seltzer crosstabs.
Yeah.
So they're saying that they know that this poll shows, and again, it's they say your sample is got it's more 3% more Democrats than Republican. Where
this is the one who did the poll. She didn't know what the D and R stood for in the poll, like Democrat and Republican.
So what this tweet is doing is comparing her results in that poll to the exit polling in Iowa from 2020. So they're saying the real results from Iowa in 2020 are this. Seltzer's poll shows this massive shift. Like senior women were +6 Democrat in the 2020 exit polls. And in Seltzer's poll released over the weekend, they were +35. So that is a 29 point swing with no explanation. Indies headed towards Democrats, women toward Democrats, men toward Democrats, rural, suburban, no college, college. Every demographic headed toward Democrat since 2020, and compared to the 2020 exit polls, with no explanation whatsoever, a deep red state going for Kamala, which means then any state could be flipped, and they even all could, which is what Kristen Soltis Anderson just tried to explain. It's so close that it could even be a blowout.
Yeah, but to me, like that's one part of this segue is like the media has no idea what's going on. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. But this person who's a pollster didn't get the D and the R. Like when this is your life, like you do polls for a living and you couldn't put the D and the R, like you can't put that together in your head. Like how stupid is this individual?
I don't know, but she's the legendary Iowa pollster who always sets the national narrative for the primary elections, because Iowa's the first in the nation, their caucuses. She's the one who pumps the Des Moines Register poll out over and over and over again, which just sets whatever narrative they choose.
That's the key right there. What you just said. It's about setting that narrative. And so the narrative they want is that the whole country's leaning to the D.
Yeah. And that there might even be a last minute unexplained wave in Kamala Harris's favor. And they probably intended that with the Trump is literally Hitler, and Trump groped a girl with Jeffrey Epstein, and Trump just threw a Nazi rally, and Trump suggested a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And you just, it goes on and on.
Yep. And the narrative they use ahead of time so they can backfill it with this fake story they make up later about Kamala winning the election. So,
yep.
Let's see what happens. But let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going. Trump, this tweet was flagged for misleading information about an election from the president. The Supreme Court decision on voting in Pennsylvania is a very dangerous one. It will allow rampant and unchecked cheating and will undermine our entire systems of law. It will also induce violence in the streets. Something must be done. And I believe that he's talking about this one right here. This is from NPR. Supreme Court sides with Democrats in Pennsylvania voting case. The U.S. Supreme Court on Friday left in place a lower court ruling that for now allows Pennsylvania voters to cast provisional ballots if their mail-in ballots have been invalidated. Since 2019, all Pennsylvania voters have been able to cast ballots by mail, but to have their mail ballots counted, they have to follow strict rules laid out in the state election code. One of those rules requires voters to place their ballot into a secrecy envelope before placing it into the mailing envelope. Without the secrecy envelope, the ballot is considered naked and will not be counted. Under a statewide notification system, voters get an email telling them that their naked ballot has been invalidated and that you can go to your polling place on election day and cast a provisional ballot. Most counties follow that practice, but some, like Butler County, PA, do not. After two voters in the 2020 primary election were notified that their ballots would not be counted because they had not put their ballots in the secrecy envelope, the voters went to the polls on election day to cast provisional ballots, but Butler County refused to count their votes. Blah, blah, blah. The Supreme Court sided with Democrats.
That's just absurd. That whole story is absurd.
Yeah. Well, the election process is absurd.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, guys, our election process has something called a naked ballot. Like, what the fuck is this? And a secrecy envelope.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Insane. And the funny thing in Michigan, I was going through what their pre-screening of ballots process is before election day, because they do everything but count the ballot. They're not allowed to tabulate them. They're not allowed to report the results. They're just allowed to do everything else to the ballot, including making sure that it is put in a secrecy envelope. Once it's in there, no one can tell what it is. Of course, they can tell what it is. And one of the things about getting all this early election information is that it's obvious they know what the votes are. They know what the scoreboard says, and we are not allowed to know. Again, just a blatant violation of the proper roles between the people and the government, between the people and the media. And we just are like, okay, I guess this is how it is.
Yeah. So are you saying that when Scott Pressler registers somebody to vote as a Republican, well ahead of time, the state knows what that person might be voting and could use that information in inappropriate ways?
Well, there is absolutely that aspect, but it's I think it's considerably worse than that, because it goes well beyond just the party affiliation of the voter. I think that they have legitimately all the information, including the vote, and they just don't, quote unquote, tabulate or report that. But the idea that they're scanning everything else except that, they're only scanning the demographic information, they can only tell you if men or women are responding or which race or which age, man, to think that they don't have the vote read through, to me, is crazy. Like, if the information can help them and they have access to it, if the only thing stopping them from getting that access and using it is some election law that will have to be challenged and go all the way through the courts in 2.5 months, I mean, for me.
Okay. I remember videos from back in 2020, and I now know, I've been told and correct that these videos were just misinformation and disinformation. None of this was true. But you saw videos of people burning Trump ballots, right?
Sure.
Now, who's to say that over the years they haven't developed technology where, as these ballots are getting scanned in and all this stuff, like just the envelopes, like they could have a little machine ahead of the actual official election envelope scanner, whatever, that scans and says, okay, this person's registered as Republican, kicks that to a different bin. Like, they could toss out every single Republican vote that, if they wanted to, just based on how you're registered, because you're already in the system as a registered or Republican or Democrat.
Yep.
Like,
and
we would have no idea what gets thrown away.
Yeah. States that have envelopes where the voter's identification and party affiliation can be seen, like a window in the envelope, so that you can see the party affiliation. So anybody that handles that ballot at any point who has no morals and wants to take whatever advantage they can get can simply throw that out. There's too many problems with the system to allow our will and consent to be conveyed to a government that gets to rule us in this manner. It's just ridiculous that we even consider it. Let's get into election day itself, because that part will be a good old time. And just one or two tweets from Trump left. Every corrupt force in American life that betrayed you and hurt you are supporting Joe Biden. The failed establishment that started the disastrous foreign wars, the career politicians that offshored your industries and decimated your factories. And actually, you know what, John, if you could pull this up, I think it's in our chat, because I always forget that I don't, for multi-page tweets, my no Twitter status doesn't give me that kind of access. So, okay, there we go.
You should consider getting a different level access.
Well, as soon as they give me my account back, maybe I'll consider that. They still will not give it back to me. Well, I'll consider it.
I'll call my handler and see what I can do.
Please do. Tell Pavlovsky to contact Elon.
See what I can do.
The open borders lobbyists that killed our fellow citizens with illegal drugs, gangs, and crime. The far left Democrats that ruined our public schools, depleted our inner cities, defunded our police, demeaned your sacred faith and values. The anti-American radicals defaming our noble history, heritage, and heroes. And Antifa, the rioters, looters, Marxists, and left-wing extremists. They all support Joe Biden. Now they all support Kamala, and we need to break that cycle one way or another. And the election results, as reported tomorrow, no matter what they are, do not change that very undeniable fact. Trump said on election day, we are looking really good all over the country, and sent out a thank you. And
one thing you forgot,
go for it.
From November 2nd, that I just want to point out. Okay. Do you remember this that Trump put out on the day before November 2nd? He put out the President Trump on China, putting America first. And it was all of the key people in his administration talking about how bad the Communist Party is and Marxism and all these things. And each one had like a series of stuff. Mike Pence was in here. It was basically just a compilation of speeches from all the key players from Devo. But that came out the day before the election as well.
Well, that's very cool. And I think I also don't have in this episode, but this was the week where Chris Ray, in my rundown, I mean, Chris Ray, John Ratcliffe, and Chris Krebs came out to announce to the country that there was interference by foreign countries in our election via, what was it, Iran and China or something, or just Iran? They had captured certain voter information and were contacting voters with something or other that was total interference.
Totar
interference.
Yeah, that was October 22nd. And then it was
But didn't they come out twice?
Well, it was a week later. The second time they came out, everybody's like, Ratcliffe went rogue.
Yes.
When he said that this was meant to hurt Trump. That's not true, guys. None of this was against Trump.
Right. And it would never be, of course.
No.
And also, this wasn't against Trump. Does everybody remember this? We'll watch this video, but enjoy the memories. Let's take a trip down memory lane.
Well, we've also got some breaking news right now, so we want to check in with CBS's Mark Strassman. He is in Georgia, where they're having a big problem counting some of the votes. Mark?
Nora, this is an election return watch party here on the edge of Atlanta. These are mostly excited Democrats because when's the last time Georgia thought of itself as a battleground state? After a record early and essentially a day of problem-free voting, there is now a hitch in the tide.
Uh-oh. This never happens, I swear.
You send me the link, I can pull it up.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that what he will be getting to is the pipes bursting. We can watch it if you want to pull it up, but there's so much good stuff to come still. And so I'm starting to get conscious of our time.
Well, it's up to you. Here, let me.
This is Mark Strassman. He is in Georgia, where they're having a big problem counting some of the votes. Mark?
Nora, this is an election return watch party here on the edge of Atlanta. These are mostly excited Democrats because when's the last time Georgia thought of itself as a battleground state? After a record early returns and essentially a day of problem-free voting, there is now a hitch in the tabulation of votes. I'm standing in Fulton County. Fulton County includes a chunk of Atlanta. Downtown Atlanta is State Farm Arena, where the Atlanta Hawks play. They are tabulating the absentee ballots of Fulton County, Georgia's most populous county. A water pipe has broken inside the arena. They had counted 86,000 absentee ballots. We don't know how many more.
Look at that lead.
Yeah.
Insane.
And then they just pumped them through what, 3-4 times? I know that's conspiracy theory and all. Ruby Freeman and Wandrea Shea Moss. That's a conspiracy theory too. They sued Rudy Giuliani. Now they own Rudy Giuliani's condo, and he has to work as their butler for the rest of his life.
You're kind of joking, but you're not. They just ruled that he has to like owe them hundreds of millions of dollars or something. It's like the Alex Jones version of election misinformation.
Yeah, totally. It really is crazy that none of these stories have been resolved and they just sit there and will never. So this was a really cool, it's from South China Morning Post of all places, but they're showing how the election, how the states were decided and in what order. And I'm going to drop this link in the chat. Actually, it's really interesting to watch because you can see how, you can kind of pick up on the patterns and see what you see. Things are kept even. The Democrats constantly ahead, but all of a sudden, a bunch of states drop in for Republicans. It seems really profound on the TV, but it doesn't actually mean anything in the numbers. And then all of a sudden, the entire, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock hits on the West Coast. You lock in that blue, the Chinese states out there, and then it's a blowout. And then everybody just expects it.
That's interesting. Can you send me this?
Yeah, I absolutely can. Yep. Here it is in our chat, and it's out in the Rumble chat as well. So let's move forward from that. What do I have here? Oh, yes. Everybody's going to love this. This is going to maybe make people have flashbacks. They'll be jumping in the bushes, attempting to hide from this story. Hold on. Sorry. I thought I had it all timed up.
Yeah,
to just
that last
drop
video
right on-
that last video you showed is like blowing my mind right now, because the first article we started with was them saying like how none of these stuff is actually resolved. It's just the media reporting and telling you what, you know, where they think the state's going to go based on available information. And
Yep.
so every time they call the state and they build the electoral college vote chart and map and make it look like Joe Biden has this huge lead,
Yep.
based on their own like information, that's none of that is resolved. Actually, it's just it's building that narrative that he has this insurmountable lead. There's no way Trump can catch up, and it makes total sense when Biden's declared the winner.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
fascinating.
there's a media decision desk that looks at data, quote unquote, from Edison Research, which is the same organization that provided the very accurate exit polls that say Nicolas Maduro stole his election and some other guy was president, even though that guy's not president. They did that in Venezuela a few years ago. You and I have talked about it a bunch on DPH. They have no problem telling you there are two presidencies going at once and trying to make their guy look like the guy. Everybody is going to be feeding off the mainstream media narrative tomorrow as they call state by state, but it's meaningless. It's just part of the TV show. It's just part of the PSYOP.
It's crazy.
And here we go. Here's a perfect example.
Arizona, are you 100% sure of that call and when you made it, and why did you make it?
Absolutely. We made it after basically a half hour of debating, is it time yet? Because it's been clear for a while that the former vice president is in the lead in Arizona and was most likely to win the state. It has been in the category that we call knowable but not callable for about an hour. We finally called it. Right now, yes, there are some outstanding votes in Arizona. Most of them are coming from Maricopa, where Biden is currently in a very strong position. And many of them are mail-in votes, where we know from our Fox News voter analysis, Biden has an advantage. We don't know exactly how many mail-in votes there are. But what I think we've heard from the White House is that they are expecting to get that they need just to get 61% of the outstanding vote, and there are 870,000 outstanding votes, and they'll be getting that. That's not true. The reality is that they're likely to get only about 44% of the outstanding votes that are there. We're right now sitting on a race that is Biden at 53%, Trump at 46%. I'm sorry, the president is not going to be able to take over and win enough votes to eliminate that 7-point lead that the former vice president has.
What time? Go to the beginning of that clip. What time did it say on the screen?
Let me.
It was like 11, right?
It was. It was 11:32. 11:30 Central.
Okay, so that would mean it was what, 9:30? Did the polls in Arizona? The polls in Arizona were not closed at that time, were they? I do not believe they were.
At 9:30 Arizona time for sure. Yeah, polls usually close at 7 or 8.
Well, when Brett Baier originally called it, I don't think the polls were closed yet.
I think that's probably right. He closed it hours before.
Yep, and then they brought him on to explain it. Guys, remember, when it came out, when all was said and done, Biden won by 10,455 votes or something crazy. Like
crazy.
But they had the balls to call it that early with 11% reporting. Like, that's insanity. Insanity. But thinking forward to like this year, do you think we're going to see that scenario again where they call it early and try to backfill in the votes to pull the cheat? Or is it just going to be question mark for 10 days?
I mean, dude, I hate predicting this kind of stuff because I could see it play out in a whole bunch of different ways. And I don't want to like prejudice myself toward any outcome. Yeah, I could see all of those things happening, man. The media is going to try to play some narrative. And I still think that there's a con inc op. A lot of people are going to feel betrayed. I think there's going to be a major, like, conservative-oriented anti-Trump effort. And it won't be explicitly anti-Trump. It will be to continually diminish Donald Trump and to suggest that we should move on from him and probably try to replace him with the running mate,
Vance.
or Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley. Let's get into the hilarious here. Joe Biden did a victory speech on election night. Most people forget this. He appeared with Kamala in a parking lot that was not particularly filled. It was another one of his car rallies. The scene at the Biden Victory Drive-In rally in Wilmington, Delaware. And I just want to play the first maybe minute or so of the Joe Biden election night victory speech. This is how, I mean, just watch this.
And this is how he runs on stage too, right? This is that one where he like jogs up there.
And it is now my great honor
You look for the video
to
game.
introduce the President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. Who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory. Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end here and now. The refusal of Democrats and Republicans to cooperate with one another. It's not some mysterious force beyond our control. It's a decision, a choice we make.
For 4 years, you marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted.
He did vote. That's true.
She looks like the Shaquille O'Neal shimmy gif.
Yeah, she can. That's so true. That's funny. You know what? Okay, remember what we went through on Saturday about the administrator having those powers to determine like who gets treated? We could hypothetically have a scenario where both candidates are operating as the president-elect this time around.
Yeah,
like
just like
both
last
of them. Well, yes, but like this time, how it was, everybody was treating Biden as like the president-elect.
Yeah.
Trump could say the same thing this time too. Like depending on how things play out, we could have two president-elects at once.
And if people on our side supposedly just stand up and call Donald Trump president and act as though he's president and laugh in the faces of Kamala supporters every time they try to tell us that her vote total is real, we'll just go forward on that path. That's all that's required of anybody.
100%.
It really is crazy. Just don't cuck. It's the easiest assignment ever. You know that meme where it has like the all like kind of messed up and withered and weathered Wojak, and he's like looking at Jesus like, did you really have to give me all of your hardest challenges? And he's like, all you have to do is mock these communists. Like, I couldn't have possibly given you an easier job.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we need that on a shirt. Just don't cuck. I mean, it probably already is on a shirt, I imagine. But
I don't know that it is on a shirt. I feel that's not something that someone would see as worthwhile merchandise. But I think you're right.
Well, you just made it worthwhile merchandise.
I hope that I did, and maybe that's true. But I'm not sure that that moment would have happened before. Anyhow, this is WTOL Channel 11, CBS News. Toledo made Jeep Gladiators prominently on display at Joe Biden victory speech. In just a second on this, he had these car rallies to make it look like a lot of people were at his rally. There's probably only 200 people here in this freezing cold Delaware parking lot in early November of 2020. But at rally after rally, they had all these brand new Jeeps. So they weren't even real people bringing their own cars. It was just a Jeep dealership set up outside to look like fans of Joe Biden.
That's crazy.
Isn't
I
it
didn't
crazy?
realize that.
Oh, yeah. And so I had friends that dug on the Jeep thing, and there were all sorts of various connections that were really quite interesting. But man, oh, man. Let's get into the real business. And this is one of the great moments of the devolution era, let's say. the Donald Trump late night election night speech.
Ooh, this is a
John,
banger.
would you like to say anything before we start?
If it's, let me see if it's what I'm thinking of. This is election night. Okay. To me, whenever I watched this back, it was like he was coming out and he was actually paid. He's like, his mindset right here is, I can't believe these motherfuckers are actually going to go through with this. You guys are going to force me to put the country through like a devolution era. Like, I think he knew right now what he was going to have to do. And so it's the disappointment on his face of these douchebags. I can't believe they did it.
And they're still doing it. And, maybe we can play just a little bit of the clip from yesterday that kind of has that same sense of exasperation. But he's got to be at some point thinking, why won't the people actually stand up for what they know to be true? Because if people don't stand up for what they know to be true, what can we do? There's nothing at that point. Like, it has to be the people. He said, we're handing power back to you, the people. And the people are like, no, the state can still tell us who our rulers are. The state can decide that. The state can tell us to wear masks on our faces and to put injections in our arms. The state gets to choose everything for us because we wouldn't be anything without the state. It's crazy.
Because Rachel Maddow said it was the best thing to do.
Gosh, man. You ready to hear some Trump speech?
Let's do it.
I'm going to put this at 125.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. There's never been anything like it. To support our incredible movement, I want to thank the American
heck
people
is happening
for their
here?
tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it. I want to thank the First Lady, my entire family, and Vice President Pence, Mrs. Pence, for being with us, all three of us. And we were getting ready for a big celebration. We were winning everything, and all of a sudden it was just called off. The results tonight have been phenomenal, and we are getting ready. I mean, literally, we were just all set to get outside and just celebrate something that was so beautiful, so good. Such a vote, such a success. The citizens of this country have come out in record numbers. This is a record. There's never been anything like it. To support our incredible movement. We won states that we weren't expected to win. Florida, we didn't win it. We won it by a lot. We won the great state of Ohio. We won Texas. We won Texas by 700,000 votes, and they don't even include it in the tabulations. It's also clear that we have won Georgia. We're up by 2.5% or 117,000 votes with only 7% left. They're never going to catch us. They can't catch us. Likewise, we've clearly won North Carolina. Where we're up 1.4% or 77,000 votes with only approximately 5% left. They can't catch us. We also, if you look and you see Arizona, we have a lot of life in that. And somebody declared that it was a victory for, and maybe it will be. I mean, that's possible, but certainly there were a lot of votes out there that we could get because we're now just coming into what they call Trump territory. I don't know what you call it, but these were friendly Trump voters, and that could be overturned. The gentleman that called it, I watched tonight, he said, well, we think it's fairly unlikely that he could catch. Well, fairly unlikely. And we don't even need it. We don't need that. That was just the state that if we would have gotten it, it would have been nice, Arizona. But there's a possibility, maybe even a good possibility. In fact, since I saw that originally, it's been changed and the numbers have substantially come down just in a small amount of votes. So we want that obviously to stay in play. But most importantly, we're winning Pennsylvania by a tremendous amount.
Crazy.
I guess it still probably went on for a little while. I don't know. I thought I had the full version there, but I guess something was wrong with that clip, or wrong with me.
Probably both.
But that's the meat of it right there. Yeah, it's probably both. He was up huge in Pennsylvania. I think 800,000 at the end of election day, and the TV just went on the air the next day and told us that Joe Biden had won, and then, or that Joe Biden had these amazing advantages in all these states. And then finally we got word eventually on the Saturday to follow. We woke up immediately the next morning and began seeing tweets like this from Trump. Although I will pause, John, do you want to discuss anything on the Trump late night speech?
No, I mean, that was the first in a series of like, official press announcements that he did, or speech that he gave, remarks that he gave, that I thought were very important. Like, this is the first one. It's acknowledging, like, yep, here they are, they're doing it. Then he went on to have some other big ones where he's like, if we're right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president, stuff like that. That's him like actually telling us what he's about to do and what he's doing. And I think a lot of that is signal. So like listening to Trump and how he actually says things, and we're going to be doing the same thing tomorrow, listening to how he's actually talking about this stuff. I think that's important. And he's been kind of hinting at it. He's been telling us like what they're doing in Pennsylvania, just massive cheating, all these things. That is signal, guys. So we shall, we'll see. But yeah, I love when Trump gets up there and especially when he's like somber and not like trying to give a rally or anything. And he's just talking about what just happened. Most of that's off the cuff, not scripted. And I think that's where you really get the truth of what he's feeling and thinking.
Did you watch some of the clips from yesterday when he was off the teleprompter talking about election stuff? Did you hear him mention Elon and the bit about the machines and how Elon says the machines are not trustworthy, but that paper is, and they have actually really great paper with water markings on the ballots, really high-tech stuff. He said, make of it what you will. A lot of people chalked it up and threw it in the conspiracy bin, but we had Steve Pieczenik out there in 2020 talking about watermarked ballots being used in that election. Now, have we seen proof of that? No, we haven't. But is it possible? Sure, it's possible.
I got a clip of that here, I think. This is the one.
An official says, I'd like to see your voter ID. He's
And sorry if it's quiet. It's not me. It's from the video source. So
guilty of a crime. This is crazy. And there's only one reason they want to do that, because they want to cheat. But Elon Musk said to me, I hope I'm allowed to say this. I think I am, because one thing, he's out there. He's a guy. He just wants the truth. He's an incredible guy. And he said, computers aren't meant for this kind of stuff. He said, there's only one thing you can do. He's the most sophisticated guy in the world when it comes to computerization. He said, the only thing you can do is paper ballots, same-day voting. Paper is very sophisticated. Watermark. It's very sophisticated. Paper ballots, voter ID, one-day voting, not 10 days where you say,
yeah, it's the second time he said that about Elon. He said it on the Rogan interview. He maybe said it more than that, but both times I think it's interesting. He couched it with like, I don't know if he said this. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this about him, but he's kind of out there. He talks a lot, so I'm going to give myself permission. And then he says that anyway.
Sometimes I wonder if Trump goes above and beyond what he's exposing these things in that way so that we will press hard on other people, like telling us, hey, you can expect this from over here. And if it doesn't happen, then you need to actually demand it, Yeah.
I
think often we're just too comfortable sitting back and like letting the story play out.
Yeah, I think that could be part of it. And I also think it's like, if there's a bigger op going on, which I think we all believe there is, and Elon's a part of it, I think that is becoming more clear if it wasn't already. Like, this is him kind of putting stuff out there that maybe he doesn't have like full green light to do. And he's like acknowledging, like, maybe I'm not supposed to like tell everybody that, this is what's going on, but this is kind of what's going on here, guys. Watermark ballots. You guys were on point with that. And we shouldn't be using machines, all that stuff. Like, that's stuff that he isn't necessarily supposed to disclose, but he does anyway. He takes it upon himself to push the envelope. I don't know.
Did you see this from a couple of weeks ago in Daily Mail? Michael Wolff, if Elon Musk's on a secret mission to topple Trump, here's how he'll do it and who he'll choose to replace Donald. And he comes down here. He says, curiously, there is a belief that it is not so much Trump who the tech bros are supporting, but his VP, J.D. Vance, whose career has been nurtured by tech money. Musk is said to have made his support for Trump contingent on Trump picking Vance, who is only 40 years old, as his running mate. So consider this. On day one of a new Trump administration, he becomes a lame duck, unable to run for a third term, and the jockey to replace him begins with eyes already focused on Vance. And, you know, there are different contingent election scenarios and other scenarios that we could see transpire over the next couple of months, including the one where they attempt to disqualify him under the 14th Amendment and all that bullshit in the fake government side of things. In that side of things, they would then say to us, well, you know, JD Vance, you guys love him. We told you he's the guy you love. Trump told you you love him too. So let's just compromise that it'll be JD Vance. Who knows? It's worth keeping in mind.
Definitely keeping in mind. Some of that afterthought stuff, I'm waiting to see how we even get through this first part.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it's too early for that. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's definitely something to have on the radar.
Trump came out firing the next morning. Again, all of these, you'll see the Twitter flags for election disinformation. Last night, it was leading off and solidly in many key states. In almost all instances, Democrat run and controlled. Then one by one, they started to magically disappear as surprise ballot dumps were counted. Very strange. And the pollsters got it completely and historically wrong. Always, because polls are fake.
Always. They literally admitted to them being fake on CNN yesterday. Like, we have no idea.
Yeah. And Nate Silver actually came out last week saying that polls are fake. They're only used as narrative devices, but only some of them. Some of them are actually really legitimate in addition to being used as narrative devices. He said the reason you can know all these polls are faking their work is because there are no outliers. They all bunch together. And over time, they produce the same numbers again and again. It's called herding. He told us all about this. And then a day later, one of his top pollsters puts out that outlier Iowa poll after he has told us that outliers are the trustworthy ones. It's really amazing.
This
Trump
is a
says,
funny tweet too.
Trump says, how come every time they count mail-in ballot dumps, they are so devastating in their percentage and power of destruction? Yeah, good point. It's almost like they've planned it in that exact way.
Yeah, it's funny. Trump talking about dumps and power of destruction, same tweet. And it has to do with voting, not anything else.
I guess. We'll see. What is this all about? He says on that morning. Couldn't see this. Matt Walsh posted, this is reason enough to go to court. No honest person can look at this and say it's normal and unconcerning. That this Matt Makoviak tweet is actually deleted, but the text of that tweet was, an update gives Biden 100% of new votes, 128,000 plus. So you can see why that would have been deleted. Matt Walsh, very bold and very brave, saying this is enough to go to court.
I'm weird op he's running, because he's definitely running a pro-Trump, anti-Trump op. If you look at he was very anti-Trump prior to Trump becoming the nominee and president. Then he became pro-Trump up until clearly he was, I don't even know when he went back to non-Trump again, but he
probably
definitely got
very violent insurrection. And all of these guys bagged Trump the entire time throughout COVID. They said the same as the left, as always with the Daily Weimar. They said that Trump was not following the science. He was not listening to the experts. And, you know, Ben Shapiro convinced his audience to go out and get the COVID shot because his wife is a doctor and his cultural upbringing, he said, not my words, it's his words, told him to respect the claims from experts and authority. And so he was just transferring that authority to others. And so then it went on like that, finding votes everywhere, working hard to get 500,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Michigan found enough to beat John James. Then eventually Donald Trump winning big in Pennsylvania after the election, but there were millions more ballots to come in and be counted, and just kept going down, blocked windows in Detroit, etc. And the stories began to just pour in. There was also at the same time a Chris Miller involved rescue of someone in Special Forces rescue in Nigeria. I'll pull that up for a second, John.
Yeah,
just to put your eyes on it. And then we got to get into some rants and get you out of here so you can start baseless conspiracy theories. Coming up next with our good pal, Zach Payne, Red Pill 78. Here is that article from The Hill.
Interesting. You should also send me that.
I'm doing it now. Here, let me scroll down a little bit so you can check that out.
Interesting.
The headline here for the viewers is U.S. forces rescue American citizen held hostage in Nigeria. And Chris Miller is mentioned down here, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, apologies. Here he is. National Counterterrorism Director Chris Miller touted the successful mission Saturday as a warning to armed groups in the region who may consider targeting U.S. citizens. This is a clear message to all criminal and terrorist-related groups everywhere that the United States government reach is infinite, and we will do everything within our great capabilities to bring our citizens home. Maybe just a flex on the Islamic State's Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda-linked militants. So these are regime terrorist organizations and a hostage rescue in Nigeria.
That's notable. Definitely have to look at that. Yeah, man. You have capabilities to like end the stream on this, don't you?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah. If you're able to set your other one up, I can close this out on my own.
And you can close this out. But I appreciate you having me. You can go as long as you need that way too.
No, we're good. That really gets us down to the end. And this was also the week that Trump signed the 1776 Commission executive order,
which got reversed by the Biden administration.
Indeed.
Keep that in mind. But this is fun, guys. I mean, looking back at 2020, especially considering what we're about to go through tomorrow, it's amazing. Come on over to Baseless Conspiracies once Chris is done here.
John, do you want to say anything about tomorrow's coverage or GART?
Yeah. Well, first of all, get your GART tickets because GART is going to be a fantastic. We're either going to be coping or trying to figure out what's going on or just celebrate. We don't even know what it's going to be. It's going to be probably a little mix of everything. It's going to be fantastic. Get your ticket, badlandsmedia.tv/events. Virtual tickets are on sale now. We are going to do a virtual live stream at some point this week. I don't know when. I was going to do it today, but didn't have time. Maybe Wednesday. And then also, tomorrow we're going to have coverage. We're going live at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have all sorts of your guests throughout the day, your favorite Badlanders, but also like some just other people. General Flynn, Mike Lindell is going to be there. Patrick Byrne, Chris Pavlovsky, Seth Keshel. We have like 15 some election people from all the various states. It'll be a great time. So there's no better place to get real coverage on your fake election than Badlands Media. Make sure you guys tune in.
Well done, John. Thanks so much for helping out. And we'll see you on Baseless Conspiracies in a bit.
Thanks for having me, man. Catch you later.
All right, later. Okay, guys. So some Rumble rants here. Dark Hatchling says it's been a long $17 says it's been a long 4 years, but here we are. Cheers to Badlands Media. Been watching since the very beginning. I've watched the evolution of devolution. Remember, the best is yet to come. I absolutely agree with you about that, Dark Hatchling. PW Hereford, $100. Thank you very much. Says at PW Werford. So, hey, man, I agree. Or woman. Melindy, $5. Spitball. Before, say, mid-December, our boy Blue will stand behind an official podium and tell the Harris campaign they need to concede. Melindy, that is a wonderful thought. That would be a wonderful and well-constructed scene. I hope we get to watch that scene. Great idea. PW Hereford or P. Werford, I don't know. $33. Why would one assume deep state can't be beaten? The plan is better than them. We won before the game even started. I agree with you. We have all, as long as we are on an equal playing field in an information sense, we have the truth on our side. They do not have access to telling the truth because they have constructed a false reality, and the truth doesn't work in there. It causes the entire system to break down. So as long as we continue along that path, I believe we are going to be just fine. People who think that I am in any way black-pilled for my perspective on our fake elections have lost their minds. I would suggest that you are too addicted to the television. I am 100% confident and optimistic that we will win in a major way. And I have said repeatedly now for 4 years I believe we are on the verge of an American Renaissance. I think we are about to enter a golden age, as Donald Trump describes. I think it makes every bit of sense, and I think it will be powered by the American people being jarred into understanding the truth. If that requires a dramatic report of a Kamala win tomorrow, so be it. We're going to have to roll with the punches. We're going to play the cards, whatever they are dealt. If there is some miracle where this all gets wrapped up in a beautiful and honest way tomorrow, I'll be all for that. But if they say we won and then we're supposed to just trust the results of the election as reported on TV and nothing ever happens to challenge the system, that is not an ideal outcome, and that is not even a tenable outcome. So that's where I stand on it, man. I don't know how anybody could be more optimistic than me, but hey, man, for some reason that still counts as blackpilling, I guess, if I make people challenge their opinions. Oh no, it could happen some other way than the way I've convinced myself it has to happen, or else the world is ending. Oh gosh, it's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be okay. It's just a TV show tomorrow. The TV show is designed to distort your perception of reality and cause you to make bad decisions and cause you to help your neighbors make bad decisions. We are supposed to be the calm within the storm. All right. So be that. We are going to be okay. Things are much worse 4 years ago than they are now. It has improved every single day since January 1st, 2021, since January 21st, 2021, and it will continue to improve as long as we keep heading in the same direction. We are going to be just fine no matter what the TV says tomorrow. It is your emotions causing your behavior, and it is true for everyone. You can impact other people. Just be calm. We're going to get through this just fine. And if your friends and family are mad and crazy to you on text message or online, they're telling you something about your relationship with them. You're going to have to be better than it, but you should step away. Again, it's all good, guys. It's all good. Let it be all good. Now, I have to figure out where the outro on this is. If you are watching or listening on Rumble, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Helps us get more eyes on Badlands Media. Helps us get more eyes on Hindsight 2020. And, you know, I just don't know where all of John's videos are. So it's going to be difficult for me to take you out of here with a proper outro or really anything. So, you know what? We're just going to play the commercial where for our new Badlands merch with Rise Attire.
Hey there, Badlanders. Do you love Badlands as much as you hate communism? Do you want patriotic apparel that's not made in China, but also won't make you look like a dork? Well, then we've got just the thing for you. Introducing an entirely new line of official Badlands gear made in partnership with the Culture Warriors at Rise Attire and Rise INTL. With 4 brand new collections of original artwork across a wide range of products to choose from. Spread the signal with deep-cut symbols from Devolution lore to the ghosts in the machine on the front lines of the Psy War. Wrap yourself in America the Beautiful with the warm tones and textures of Badlands National Park. To the eye of the storm in Mount Rushmore. This is premium quality streetwear, custom made to order from scratch just for you by the Patriots at our East Peoria, Illinois facility. Don't wait. Explore the entire store and order your new gear today at badlandsmedia.tv/rise. Represent Badlands boldly and proudly. This culture war ain't gonna win itself.